Welcome to the next installment in the research project lesson video series. This video we're going to talk about note taking, summarizing, paraphrasing, and organizing your information. First thing we're going to talk about is note taking. Once you've done everything you need to do and determine that a website or resource is good enough to use in your project, then you're going to start taking notes so that you can put that information into your project. The most common method for students to take notes is just to handwrite the information down and then type it into a word processor. Some students are better typers than writers, so they'll just type it right into like a Word document or a notepad document and save them to reference for their project. You want to do it in a way that you can use this information when you're creating your project, meaning it needs to be understandable to you. So if you can't understand what your own notes are saying, you need to redo your notes so that you can actually understand it, so that when you put it into your project, you know what exactly you are trying to say and discuss in your project. Again, they should be taken in a way so that you can reference the information at any time and know what it means. Because once you take a pile of notes and then go back to look at your notes to start organizing the information, if you don't understand what you meant by that note, you're not going to be able to use it properly or in the right context in your project. This slide got a little goofy on me, so let's start at the top here. Each set of notes should be linked with the specific website, including the web address or the URL to the website, so that you can access that source at any time. If you only get halfway through the notes and then you have to leave for your next class, but there's a lot more good information, you want to be able to come back to that site. So you should always write down the source so that you can come back to it, and also so that you have the source for creating your works cited page at the end of the project. Here are some things to consider. I got 3 basic methods of note taking: directly quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. I want to emphasize paraphrasing and summarizing. Even though I do talk about direct quoting in this PowerPoint, I'm going to go ahead and skip over it in this video because it's a pretty involved process. It's something that I don't want to get too in depth, because there are multiple ways to direct quote depending on the format and style you use. I'll give you an example. MLA or APA are 2 methods of quoting and citing material when you're doing a research project or paper. And I'd rather you not goof it all up, so we're just going to skip over it and work on the paraphrasing and summarizing in this video. So these 2 slides are included in the PowerPoint, and you can reference them at a later time if you'd like to. If you feel that there's no better way to put the information and you want to discuss with your teacher direct quoting, I'll leave that to an individual basis, but I really don't want to get into it because it is quite involved. If you'd like to see it, I have a link on the website that you can reference the entire PowerPoint and go back and view that. So let's get right into paraphrasing. This is used to condense a particular segment or a piece of another author's work by restating the information, and I have to really emphasize this, in your own words. Okay, this is just looking at a particular piece, a sentence or 2, but a small segment. It usually ends up similar in length to the original source, but it may be slightly smaller. What you're doing is you're restating the information in a way that completely changes the sentence or sentences that you're using. And you're doing this not by simply adding, deleting, or changing a few words here or there. A lot of students will take out a the or an and or a but, connecting words, and it goofs everything up. You need to actually rephrase the entire sentence or statement in your own words. And then you have to cite that specific source. Okay, you can't just use, like I said, wikipedia.com or google.com. Those sites do not give you the information. They link you to the information to a very specific web address or internet site, and you need to list that site. So when you're doing this, the way that you can do it is restate it. You want to say it in a more simple form. And the directions that I give are, first you read the original source. Okay, and then it's best if you minimize the website that you're looking at so that you can't see it word for word in front of your face anymore. Think of what the main idea from those sentences or sentence that you want to use, and then restate that in your own words. I recommend to students to say it out loud or to write it down, but again, put it in your own words. Think of if you read something earlier in the day, and then by the time you run into one of your friends, you wanted to tell them what was so interesting that you read about. Well, without that site being right in front of your face, it's going to be in your own words, inevitably. And that's how you want to think of paraphrasing a particular sentence or sentences. Summarizing is very similar to paraphrasing, only summarizing condenses the main idea of another author's work. Again, I can't emphasize this enough, it always has to be in your own words. It usually ends up a little bit shorter in length than the original, and it's, again, restating the information without just deleting or adding a couple words here and there. It needs to be completely restated in your own words. And also make sure you get the website from that source that you use to cite later on your works cited page. Get the very specific website. Summarizing is very similar to paraphrasing in the method and approach that you take to do it. Again, read the original source and then minimize the website so you're not looking right at it. The difference is summarizing, you need to think of the main idea of the source as a whole. Okay, this is the main idea. This is like an entire paragraph or a page. And then again, say it out loud or write it down, or think of how you would tell somebody if they were sitting next to you without actually reading it word for word off of the screen. It always has to be in your own words. And the last thing I want to touch on is organizing your information. Okay, once you've gathered all the information, you need to organize it in a way that makes your presentation flow. In social studies, for example, you're using events from the past. So a lot of the times the best way to do this is chronological, meaning time or sequence order, going from earliest to latest. And then once you have a particular start date and an end date, there's going to be a lot of events that happen in between, and that's going to be kind of the meat and potatoes of your project. You want to look at, again, the first date that you come across. If it's a person, that's when they were born, and then the last date may be when they died, if you're using chronological order to organize. That's usually the easiest if you're doing a person or an event, or if you choose to do a timeline project. You can use an outline to lay your information out and make the information be in an organized fashion so that it has good flow. Another approach in social studies that's a little less common is to chunk the information, and I find this approach really good in the World History 1 and 2 civilization or history of a nation projects, where the information gets chunked according to subtopics. You might not be able to follow a timeline or a chronological flow, so what you do is you devise these subtopics. You want to decide what you want to break your information into as far as subtopics, and then these core subtopic main ideas all support your actual project or focus of your project, but it's broken up into little ideas and chunks of information. think of it this way: lay your paper out to organize it where you've got a bubble in the middle with your main idea. Let's say it's the Mayans. And then each of your subtopics will be a little bubble off of that main bubble, and you might discuss their religion, government, social structure, etc. Those are called subtopics, all those little things that support that main topic. And off of those subtopics, you'll have little branches to support, what was the different aspects of the government for the Mayans. How were the social classes divided? So you're going to have little topics off of your subtopics to all come together and support your main topic. That's the end of our presentation. Stay tuned for the next one.